Hello everybody, Adrian here, welcome back to ALTERKNIT. Today's video is going to be the closest thing on this channel that you're gonna find to like a normal knitting podcast. Except this video won't go for like 17 hours. If you thought that was shady, then you're right, it was. I've been working on a couple of projects and I've actually got them here to show you. How exciting is this? I'm also gonna talk to you a little bit about my tips for buying yarn online, because I know some people just completely avoid it, and that can in some ways limit the kind of stuff that you can use, depending on what's at hand. I mean, if you've got great local yarn stores that stock all different kinds of things, then you probably don't need to shop online. But if you live on a tropical island somewhere and there's just not a whole lot happening, then online is where it's at. So I'll talk a little bit about that. I've also got a channel update as well. So that's what's on this episode today, or this video today. And I know I look a bit disheveled compared to how I normally look, but that's because life has been doing its thing lately and has been kicking me around. It's been busy, and I just thought, you know what, I cannot be bothered trying to make myself look pretty. A video won't happen if I have to do that, so you're just getting me as is at the moment, and that's just gonna have to be okay. I recently attended an advanced cardiac life support course. I know that sounds impressive, doesn't it? But I would like you to know that I, as a team leader, ordered somebody to continue cardiac compressions on a patient who had a pulse. Now, keeping in mind, I'm talking about mannequins, not real life people. We don't tend to practice things like CPR on real life people. And so basically the situation was I asked someone to continue to like manually beat somebody's heart when the heart was already beating perfectly fine on its own, and I knew that. So I'm sure that sounds less impressive now. Anyway, that's irrelevant. I'm gonna do my graphic intro because I saw it somewhere on YouTube at one point and thought it looked slick. The first thing that I want to show you is a jumper that I've got on the needles at the moment, and it's called the Fencin. It's a cable knit jumper, and it was designed by Jared Flood for, I think, their Arbor collection. Now, I watched my previous videos like maybe one time and then never again. I have to apologize for the last video. It was very boring when I watched it over, like, I couldn't bear to watch it all the way through. So I apologize. But I did notice that I say arbor really strangely. And to me, it kind of sounds like an American trying to sound like a British person trying to say ABBA. But if I try and articulate my R, then I sound like an Australian pretending to be an American. Arbor. It doesn't work for me. It feels very strange to over-articulate the R. But anyway, if Brooklyn Tweed, if you could just change the name of that product, because it is a little bit awkward in my mouth, that'd be great. Anyway, let's get started. So I'm knitting this for myself, and so it's like the big, massive, huge size, which is cool because like I don't want it to be tight. I'm gonna try and pluck out some of the dog hairs. Look, I knit on my couch, okay? And my dogs are allowed up on the couch, and they're hairy little beasts. And it's really frustrating that my knitting gets full of hair. I mean, it's frustrating even with a heathered yarn, but this is just like a plain color yarn. So it's frustrating. Anyway, this is what I've done so far. I really enjoy I'm sure you can just see hair. You can see that for sure. Oh no, I dropped my ball of yarn. Probably picking up more hair, that's great. These cable motifs look far more complex than they actually are. And it's really quite a relaxing knit for me. It's not frustrating. This yarn is really lovely to work with, and it keeps my brain going like a pure stockinette can never do. Though I just really love pure stockinette finished projects. So this is the Arbor, this is the back panel of Fencin in Arbor by Jared Flood. I was talking last time about the tubular bind on, tubular bind off, that kind of thing. This has a tubular bind on it, and I don't know if you're able to look at the hem, probably not. I might put a picture on Instagram or something, but I managed to do it for like a third of the hem, and then I stuffed it up somehow and now it just sort of looks like long tail cast on. It doesn't perfectly match up, but that's fine. It's the back panel. I don't care. I'll do it right for the front panel. That's quite a lot of dog hair that I picked up with that. I don't want to know any more about this. If I look at how much hair just got picked up on that, I'm going to be upset, so I won't. Anyway, so I'm working on that. I've actually stopped working on that for a while to work on this next project. And this is The Morse Cowl by Michelle Wang. And this is a Fair Isle cowl. It's like not a double looping cowl, it's just a single cowl. And I haven't, I'm showing you the part that I didn't want to show you. It's got a little, I dropped a stitch, and so I've just put a little safety pin in it and thought I'll just deal with you later. And I know you're probably screaming and thinking no, because you need to undo the rows above, and that's not happening. So we'll all just have to deal with that. But this is also a really fun knit, and it's simpler than it seems. I'm a little bit worried about my color dominance, but I think when I block it, it will be fine. One thing that I'm having to learn to deal with in this is that my tension with Fair Isle is just not on point. There's some stitches that are really loose and baggy and others that are kind of tight, but I'm trying to make sure that I leave enough slack in the floats that it's not going to pull detail when it's all blocked out. You know, if the floats are too tight between stitches, sometimes it can pull that stitch into the background and you don't necessarily get the pattern so well. I want to show you the inside, and the way I knit Fair Isle, you're pretty much never going to actually see the reverse pattern, because I like to lock my floats down every like third or fourth stitch, just so that there are no loose ends that you can snag your finger on and pull and break the work. So that's what the inside of it looks like. I think I've left enough slack in the floats. But I like this. This is, the main color was chosen by my mum, because this is for my mum for when her and my dad go overseas to the snow. And this is Brooklyn Tweed Shelter. And I've never used Shelter before, but essentially it's like 2 strands of Brooklyn Tweed loft twined together, or at least I think that's what it is. So it's fun to work with. It's not as fragile, which is good. You may notice there is this black line here on the ribbing, and it's not really a provisional, I guess it's a provisional cast on, because I'm going to get rid of that eventually. This was a tubular bind on like I'd never done before. Rather than it just being a 1 process bind on, it was like a 4-row process of binding on. So I don't know. It looks like it worked out well, but the pattern suggests keeping the like the provisional first part on there until you block. Otherwise it can stretch out. So that's what I'll do. I'll be a good boy and listen to the pattern. But this is a really fun knit as well, and that's what I'm currently working on. I want to get this done by the end of the week, which I think I can. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's almost like the cooling tower of a nuclear power plant, if that makes sense. It's kind of just like a funnel that gets narrower at the top. So that's what I'm working on at the moment. I will soon receive another skein of yarn, and I'll be working a hat out of that. It's just going to be the 1 skein. And this is from, actually I won't tell you where it's from. I wanted to talk about one of the channel changes that's happening at the moment. Months and months and months ago, I was emailed by this company, and I thought it was spam, and it may still be spam. But they were saying, oh wow, you know, we watch your content and blah, blah, blah. And it all seemed very like generic, and it could have been for anybody. And it was like, join or we want to feature you, or, you know, that kind of thing. And I just ignored it, and I thought, this is spam. They, you know, they see that I have a couple hundred subscribers on YouTube, and they just targeted me because they know that I want to be big star. They think that I want to like grow my channel huge, so that they target me there. So I ignored it. I just binned it. And then, you know, like a month or 2 later, I got another one, and then another one, and then another one. And I got 4 of these ones, and they all seemed vaguely the same. One of them was, you know, we want to help you grow your Instagram audience. And the other one was, we want to help, you know, we want to spotlight and feature you, which means we'll take over the editing of your photos. And it was weird, and it just never seemed personal. And so I just ignored them. But I recently got an email from another one of these companies, and it seemed a little bit more like a real life human person emailing me. And at the end, there was a name that I recognized, And it was somebody that I follow on Instagram. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll look into this a little bit more because not that I know this person personally, but I trust that it's human run because the name matched rather than just, I don't know, I was thinking about the other companies, but they very much just seemed like spam. So I looked into this and it was basically about getting people who create YouTube content and people who make products and finding a way of matching them up and sort of having product promotion as well as more exposure, I guess, for a content creator. So, beneficial, and you guys get to see more things. So it's like a win-win-win, and the middleman, I assume, is getting paid by the companies who want to advertise and that kind of thing. So everybody's winning all around. I asked a lot of questions because I didn't want to sort of jump into a working relationship like this if I was basically sent a whole bunch of things and I had to produce positive reviews regardless of what I thought, because I'm not about that. If I'm reviewing something, then I'm going to tell you straight what I thought of it, the pros and the cons. Like, everything has pros and cons, and whether or not I think something is good lies in the balance of the pros and the cons. So I emailed back and I sort of asked a whole bunch of questions like, what if I don't like this product? Am I still expected to put out a review because it won't be positive if I don't like it? And the response was, look, we will try and match you and we'll let you know who the company is, what the product is, and you can decide. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. If you do want to do it, do it. And then from that point, we want an honest review anyway. And I thought, well, do you know what? Let's try it, because what have we got to lose, right? I'm gonna get help with my Brooklyn Tweed addiction, and people are actually just going to send me stuff that's not Brooklyn Tweed. And I think that's probably the safest way for me to do something that's not Brooklyn Tweed. So I have looked into a company, and I'm really, really excited to try their yarn. It's a totally different fiber than I've ever used, fiber combination. I found a pattern where I can use just the one skein and create a lovely hat. So that's what I'm going to do. But in future, and that's going to be like, that's the sponsored video kind of thing. So not that I'm being paid money from the companies to do a review. They're just going to send me the product for free of charge, which means that that's a sponsored video. I think it's going to be really cool because I'll get to show you guys things if I like them. And even if I'm, not too sure on them, and if I think there's some drawbacks, I'll let you know, because that's really what it's all about, isn't it? We want honesty, and we want to see some variety. Damn it, Adrian. Variety is the spice of life, as they say. So I wanted to update you on that. Let me know what you think about that in the comments below. I am a little bit nervous, not too nervous, but I have noticed that if someone has been creating content for a little while and they start doing sponsored videos, people are not very forgiving, and they seem to judge the creator harshly. I previously have seen some videos where it wasn't apparent until the very end, or if I looked in the description box, that it was a paid presentation. And I'm not really keen on that sort of trickery. I think if you're getting paid to do a review, or if someone has sent you something for free to review, like a company has sent you something to review, let people know that it's a sponsored video. There's no harm. I mean, it doesn't mean that we're being lied to if it's a sponsored video. That's got to be a perk of the job, right? People send you free stuff that you actually really like. Sounds good to me. Anyway, I wanted to let you know, and now you know. As I said before, I checked this group out online because I'd never heard of them before. I'd never heard of the product, and basically I had only sort of once or twice even heard of this fiber type being used in a yarn, and to find an online retailer premium yarn, it was really exciting. And that brings me to the next thing that I wanted to talk about, which was buying yarn online and how to do it. Some of you have said, I buy yarn online all the time. I don't need to know how to do that. I'm not going to teach you how to suck eggs. So if you don't want to listen to my tips, then thanks for joining me. Stay tuned, and I will see you next time. You better meet me here next time. But if you do want to know some tips, stay tuned. So the first one is to look at the big yarn companies. And this isn't necessarily to buy from them, because I've noticed sometimes their prices can be a little bit higher. But if you use Jimmy Bean's wool, Webs, that kind of thing, Love Knitting, those companies have got, like, they retail a huge variety of different brands of yarn, from like your affordable everyday stuff to your premium stuff. So if you don't even know what brand of yarn you want, if you just have a fiber type in mind or even a weight of yarn in mind, go to one of those websites and use the filters and the search options to sort of discover new yarns. You can always Google things like premium yarn and that kind of thing. You may miss out on some really good quality yarn producers, but you'll discover some other great ones as well. So my recommendation is to start there. If you kind of flat out don't know what you want and you want to discover something, or you want something to stand out to you, it can on those websites. Another is to use places like Pearl Soho. They will retail other people's yarns as well. And because Pearl Soho is just sort of like at this pinnacle of being quality and luxurious and high end, even the way they display these yarns are often better than the ways the companies display them themselves and show the color options and give descriptions. So check out Pearl Soho. I noticed at the moment that it's sort of, well, actually I was looking for silk, so it was a bit limited. But anyway, check out Pearl Soho if you want to just discover different brands of yarn that you may be interested in. My next piece of advice is to get on Ravelry. So once you've found a yarn that you may want to purchase, get on Ravelry and search for that yarn. You'll be able to find the two most important things. One, the comments. People will leave comments about a yarn on the Ravelry yarn page. And keep in mind the timestamp, because some of them go back more than 6 years and the yarn may have actually changed in how it's processed in that time frame. And you'll get positive and you'll get negative comments. You're always going to get negative and positive reviews for anything, but it's in the balance, and it's kind of how you value certain comments. So if it continuously comes up that color bleeds when you block this particular yarn, that just might be a deal breaker for you, but you may not care about that. You may be wondering, how soft is this against skin? And if people are saying that it's super soft, hey, that's great. That's a green light for you. But I can get a lot of good information from the comment section, and people will sometimes link the project that they used the yarn for, which makes it super easy for you to just click on that and go to that project and see what they made. Otherwise, you can just kind of like go through their library if it's not too big and find out what they made and see whether or not you think it was maybe not the right project for that yarn anyway, or if you think they maybe used, if there was something about the project that just didn't quite match with the yarn, you can make that decision yourself. The other really good thing about looking at a yarn on Ravelry is the other projects in colorways. Color is such a difficult thing for yarn suppliers or producers to get across on screen, because everybody's screen is so different. And that's why a lot of companies have got color cards or they've got shade cards where you can order either it'll be like, the best shade cards are when there's a little tuft of the yarn coming off the card so that you can actually see the yarn IRL in real life and see what the color is. Otherwise, it's a really good idea to get on Ravelry and say, okay, I'm going to look at the cherry stone colorway, and you may load it up and say, hey, that's exactly what I thought it was going to look like. Or you might think, absolutely none of these pictures looks anything like what's on the website. And unfortunately, that can happen. So don't just use the company's website and their list of colors to say that's exactly what it's going to look like. On Ravelry, you've got people taking photos of the color under totally different light conditions. The best ones are probably daylight, because that's white light. It's the most sort of true, but even then it can be a little bit tricky. Indoor lighting is often a little bit too sort of orangey pink cast. So if you have a blue color, like a navy blue, and it's filmed indoor, particularly at night, using incandescent light, then you're probably going to get something that looks like black. Greens are totally different under artificial light as well. So, I mean, that's probably my biggest piece of advice when you're looking at colors, because that's probably the main thing we want to know, right? Is this color true to what's on the website? Check Ravelry, look at it under all different light conditions. That's all I can tell you about that. My next bit of advice is, again with Ravelry, to use forums and to either look up the yarns, because people will be talking about them in the forums, or to create a forum post of your own to ask, has anybody used this yarn? What do they think of it? Did they think it was good value for money? Did it hold up to repeated use? Whatever you want to know about the yarn, you can find out about it by adding a blog post, a forum post on Ravelry. Another piece of advice is to calculate the shipping before you get your heart set on buying the yarn. If you're like me and you live overseas and you live well overseas from where most of the yarns are coming from, then you probably really need to calculate the shipping and also currency exchange to see whether or not it's going to blow the budget. Something simple like a pattern. A pattern may cost $10 American. And if I convert that to Australian, it might cost me, I should have bought my phone, $12, $13, $14. Well, let's just say that the conversion's really like near parity and say it's $12 for the pattern. That's fine, but then there's another $8 for shipping. And all of a sudden it becomes a $20 pattern. And that's just not something that I'm prepared to do when it costs $12 for $10 for somebody else. So you can see how it all adds up. There was one time I really had my heart set on something from a company that I won't name, but the shipping was horrendously huge. It was like $30 to ship everything here. And that was just the straw that broke the camel's back, and I couldn't afford to pay for that, which was a real shame because the result was I didn't get a product, they didn't get a sale. And that's a real shame. My last piece of advice would be if you have any concerns or questions, you can contact the company. I mean, there are real people behind the computer screens of these online yarn companies. And there have been many times where I've emailed someone to say, if I buy, can this happen? Can that happen? Or whatever it was that I needed or wanted. And they'd either say, yes, that's possible, or no, it's not. And so if you've got any unanswered questions, rather than just purchasing and being disappointed, ask beforehand and get a response from the company before you decide to make a purchase. There are a lot of, the world is online these days. So we shouldn't be afraid of purchasing any yarn online because we can purchase everything else online too. And it's not such a shady marketplace anymore. Yeah, well, nobody is, but there's other more reputable places as well. It's very shady, but that's not what we're here to talk about. Anyway, that's everything I've got for today. I think I wanted to show you guys what I'm working on. So I've got 2 projects on the go, and there'll be a third when I get this yarn that I'm going to knit with the hat. Probably finish the cowl before I even get that. I'll do the hat, then I'll jump back to the jumper. Then I'm gonna start a cowl for my dad. I have, oh, that's right. You guys and your suggestions with the triangle scarf shawl patterns. You gave me some really excellent suggestions, and I don't have my phone with me at the moment, but I'm gonna put on screen here what I've chosen. So I know this one wasn't specifically listed, but this designer was, and somebody said any pattern, any shawl pattern that she does. And I took that to mean I could just choose any one of her shawl patterns. So I've chosen this one, and as it turns out, it's not actually triangular, but I fell in love with it. The design is right up my alley because there is that very sort of ornate lace, but then there is that really minimalist sort of the other triangular pieces to create a big square shawl. And it's gossamer. It's so fine and see-through and light, but when it's worn coiled around the neck, it can be a little bit warmer. Now, I think I did mention, probably on Instagram, not here, that I'm knitting this for my sister who lives in Ireland, right? It's not always winter there, contrary to popular belief. There are some milder months, and I think this would be a beautiful shawl for her to have. I'm going to knit it in 100% silk. I know it sounds extravagant. I was really bummed out because I think it's Madeline Tosh. I think Madeline Tosh has a pure silk, 100% silk, but it's been discontinued, and I just can't find the kind of color that my sister would want in the quantity that I would need. So and I know I asked you guys for yarns suggestions, and you did suggest yarns, but none of them were lace weight yarns, I don't think. Although somebody did say anything from Malabrigo, which, I love the look of Malabrigo yarns, but I didn't find anything that I could find suitable. But I did actually have an email conversation. I know this sounds like a real cop-out. I had an email conversation with somebody who suggested this yarn brand that I'm going to put on the screen because I forgot. And I think the stars have aligned, and I'm going to get their 100% silk in the finger lace weight. Yes. and it looks amazing. So thanks for the suggestion, guys. I couldn't be happier with how it turned out. I was planning to do some like ferociously multicolored triangle or whatever shawl, and yet this more subdued, timeless looking lace shawl came out of it. And that's the beauty of this whole process of selecting patterns and projects and yarns and people to knit for as well, is that it can evolve. So thanks so much for your help. My question for this episode is, what product would you like to see me review? Now this could be yarn, needles, notions, anything to do with knitting. If there's a product that either you've used and you really love and you just kind of want to see how I would go with it, or if you have something that you want to see reviewed that you don't have, drop it in the comments below. I'll put a post over on Instagram so that you can comment there as well. But look, that's everything for today's episode. I'll see you again sometime in the future. If you're new here, please subscribe so you don't miss when I upload a video. If you aren't new here, thanks for returning. I always appreciate it. Get in the comments, let's get a conversation going, and I'll see you next time. Stay cool, stay safe. Bye.